Welcome to Lexington Public Library's Tales from the Kentucky Room podcast, where we explore Lexington's history and people. I'm your host, David Bryant, and in each episode, we will feature a guest who will share a piece of local history. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoy. Welcome back to the Tales from the Kentucky Room podcast. I'm your host, David Bryant, and today I'm talking to photographer Bob Willcutt and historian Jeremy Popkin about their new book, Gratz Park, The Heart of Historic Lexington. Hi, Jeremy.
Hello.
Hi, Bob.
Hello.
Welcome to the podcast. Bob Willcutt is an accomplished photographer. His photography has appeared in numerous published works, including most recently Waveland's Treasures in 2021. His work has received awards from the Kentucky Historical Society, the Bluegrass Trust, and many other organizations. Dr. Jeremy Popkin is a professor emeritus at the University of Kentucky. He has authored over 20 books on topics including American Jewish history and the French and Haitian revolutions. He also presents popular historical walking tours of Gratz Park. I just want to say I really enjoyed the book. It was really interesting and lots of fun. I learned a lot. I thought to get the conversation started, we could start with the title. The title of the book, Gratz Park, The Heart of Historic Lexington. So for people who may not know, where is Gratz Park and how is it the heart of Lexington?
Well, Gratz Park is located between 2nd and 3rd Streets and Mill and Market Streets, close to downtown Lexington. It's the heart of historic Lexington because it's the part of the city that most preserves the atmosphere of Lexington in the 19th century. But it's also the heart of historic Lexington because it's connected to every aspect of the history of our city. It was set aside as a special piece of ground as early as 1792 when it was donated to Transylvania University. It was the original site of the Transylvania University's first buildings. And Transylvania University was what gave Lexington its claim to be the Athens of the West. But Transylvania University sat in the middle of what was also, you could say, the center of slavery in early Lexington. It was surrounded by hemp factories and rope walks where enslaved black laborers produced the ropes and cut bagging that were the biggest industry in Lexington in its early days. During the Civil War, both the Union and Confederate armies stationed troops in Gratz Park. Union headquarters was on the corner of the park in the Bodley Bullock House. Across the street from it was the home of Henrietta Morgan, the mother of John Hunt Morgan, the Thunderbolt of the Confederacy. Even the families on Gratz Park, like the family of Benjamin Gratz, for whom the park is named, were divided between Union and Confederate supporters. After the Civil War, when the lot that we think of as the park first was set aside as a park by Benjamin Gratz's son Howard, it was a symbol of segregation during the Jim Crow era. There was a sign on the gate to the park that read, "No dogs or Negroes allowed." When the city of Lexington took it over early in the 20th century, it was a reflection of the progressive era and the feeling that public parks were an amenity that the city needed to provide for its citizens. After World War II, as Lexington was expanding, there was a proposal to solve traffic problems in downtown Lexington by running a 4-lane street through the middle of Gratz Park.
Wow.
The backlash against that led to the formation of the first historical society in Lexington and a new attitude toward preserving the city's past, and that organization is now the Bluegrass Trust and has had a tremendous influence on the city. And now, as Lexington is grappling with some of the darker aspects of its history, the rediscovery of the importance of the Gratz Park area and the history of slavery and segregation is making us look at it in a new way.
Wow. That was a great timeline that you just provided. Man, that really illustrates how it is very connected to the history of the whole city.
And it continues on now with the Carnegie Center in Gratz Park, helping out the immigrants coming in, special programs.
Yeah, absolutely. As you go back in time, imagine that there wasn't all of the city around, when you talked about the hemp farms and stuff, it's, it was still kind of a rural area, for probably quite some time.
Yes, when it was first given to Transylvania University, for example, you didn't need a park to get out in nature in Lexington. You just needed to walk.
You just walked outside.
North of 3rd Street, you were out in the wilderness.
And we don't have any proof of it, but it's possible that Abraham Lincoln and Jefferson Davis both walked the park, maybe at the same time.
Quite likely, actually.
Yeah, because Abe was dating Mary Todd, and they would have strolled through the park. And Jefferson was...
Well, it wasn't a park then, Bob.
It was land, okay. Unsettled land.
Yeah. So
Well, it became a park after the Civil War when Benjamin Gratz's son, Howard, agreed with Transylvania University. Transylvania University remained the legal owner of the land, even when it moved its campus north of 3rd Street and built Old Morrison Hall and then expanded up Broadway away from the park. But Transylvania University didn't want to be responsible for that piece of land. So Howard Gratz went to them and said, if you will let me manage it, you'll remain the legal owners, but I will put up a fence around it. I will put up a gate. I will make sure that it's maintained, and I will run it, as he said explicitly, as a place for, quote, respectable white people. And originally it was opened for the centennial of the American Declaration of Independence in 1876. So it was originally called Centennial Park, but people quickly began referring to it as Gratz Park because Benjamin Gratz, who was a very prominent citizen of the city, had his house there, the Gratz House, which is still there, and because Howard Gratz, who was a prominent figure in city life, was managing the park. And I recently discovered, after we did the book, Bob, that the state legislature actually passed a bill in 1880, I think, to officially give it the name Gratz Park. So it's been blessed by the legislature.
Okay. How did you get the idea for the book? I'm assuming the photography came first?
Yeah, photography came first. And of course, it's a lot of pretty views. And so originally I was going to do it for the Bluegrass Trust for Hopemont building with their collection in there, which is now dispersed. And then I thought, well, I could expand that to their other properties and all that. It was kind of a dead end, and they were remodeling. And then all of a sudden it just dawned on me that, wait a minute, it's the whole park. It's not just the Hopemont building. It's everything, how it fits together. And the more I looked into it, and I actually took Jeremy's little walking tours twice and learned a lot from him.
Glutton for punishment.
Yeah. And then I kept going down for like different views, like the lighting changes, like all places, and things that you wouldn't notice. Like one day, the next day, there's a light beam coming right in there. That's really cool. There's one picture in there of a little garden statue, and the light was just coming down on the statue. And this is real. It's not Photoshop. It was real. And of course, in 5 seconds, it's changed. It's gone. So you have to capture these moments. And then I also went through and saw the iron gates, I started researching that and found out who made the parts for them, which factories and the companies and research like that. And then the skylight at the library, it was modeled after the original courthouse skylight. And we have a shot going straight up, and then we have one with a drone shooting straight down,
So the skylight at the Carnegie Library, as we
think
is modeled.
We think, or I don't know if they say modeled or inspired by.
Mm-hmm.
And the iron gates was important because a lot of them still had the emblems on, so you could tell who the manufacturer was. Where around town there's a lot of these iron gates, but they don't have the emblems anymore. So this is helpful for other people doing restorations on houses.
We can come back to the iron gates in a moment. I did want to ask you about that. So what are some surprising things that you think readers may learn or see from the photographs? So you could both take that question, I think.
Well, for me, one of the great discoveries was the connection between the park and the history of African-American life in Lexington, slavery, segregation, but also the presence of African-Americans in the park. When I was first getting interested in this project, I talked to my UK colleague, Gerald Smith, one of our leading African-American historians, and he said to me, when you imagine the park before the Civil War, remember that there would have been more black people in the park, the enslaved servants of the wealthy families that lived there, than whites. And that was a whole new way of thinking about the history of Lexington for me. But then the connection of the park that I've mentioned to so many aspects of Lexington history, even if we come up to more recent times, to my own life in Lexington, there was that period in the 1980s and 90s when lots of civic events were being held in the park. Halloween in the park, Christmas in the park, and so on. And that was a particular time in Lexington. And then you see the opening of the Civic Plaza down on Main Street, and a lot of public events move to that larger venue where you can make more noise without disturbing people, and Gratz Park becomes this sleepy little place again.
One of the most surprising things to me was the colored reading room display. That I'd never heard about that. And actually, Jeremy told me hey, you need to check this out. That LaVon Williams did a wood sculpture there. It's very dramatic. But even deeper than that, there's articles in here from the library annuals from the 1950s, I think, talking about the segregation. And then the blacks were not allowed to read the books, but the janitors in there at night could.
That was a fascinating
Yeah,
story.
so they educated themselves and did wonderful things. Also, the free blacks, Mary Britton's family, which was like just a couple doors up from John Hunt Morgan's mother's house, at the same time period, I think, were very successful free blacks. And she went on. Actually, the whole family did amazing things. So they got along fine. It was not cut and dry. It's like most things, it's very complicated.
Also, who are some notable residents? I mean, you mentioned Benjamin Gratz. Like major events or notable residents that may have happened.
Well, a lot of famous people in Lexington history lived in and around the park. Mary Todd Lincoln was in school in one of the buildings there for a while. The Morgan family, John Wesley Morgan was the wealthiest man in the western United States in the early 19th century, the first millionaire in Kentucky. Benjamin Gratz, who I'm actually writing a whole book about at the moment, is an important political figure and the first Jewish resident of Lexington, Kentucky, part of a very important early American Jewish family. And going down to the present, you have Jim Gray, our former mayor and current Secretary of Transportation, who lives on the park.
And one of the founders of the Herald Leader had a house there, I think in the Carrick House.
Okay, yeah. Bob knows some details that even I have forgotten.
Well, also, 2025 is the 200th anniversary of Lafayette's visit to Lexington. So would Lafayette have visited?
Oh, most certainly. He
Gratz
was
Park.
Received at Transylvania University. Its building then was where that little cottage is now in the middle of the park. He stopped by to say hello to the Gratzes because he had known Gratz's wife's stepfather during the American Revolutionary War. So yes, Gratz Park was a center of Lafayette's visit.
Very much. So, Bob, I wanted to ask you about the photography. Like, what is your approach to capturing the images? Were you looking for details? If you could just talk about that a little bit.
Okay. My style, I guess, is to bring out as much detail as possible without looking cartoonish. And that has to do with the original capture, which is good equipment, knowing how to use it, capturing the lighting. Sometimes I go back 10 or 12 times to get the lighting directions, or, lights filtered through the trees different ways. And you're always fighting the leaves, these darn leaves are blocking the sun, so that, and I use good software, but I don't put anything in that's not there. I don't use any generative image production. On the antique photographs in there, spent a lot of time on those because the libraries of UK Special Collections, Transylvania Special Collections, Berea College, have given me TIFF scans of some of these old pictures, but they're faded, scratched, some parts are not there. And by using very careful Photoshop techniques, I can bring back the details. And some of the discoveries you make, like on Howard Gratz's fence that he put up, when I brought that up, you could see the foliage on the fence that I think it's talked about in there, but you can actually see it. It shows here of Bovette James, who was the enslaved woman that was owned by the Morgan family. And I have in here a photo of the logbook from the Lexington Cemetery and a picture of the tombstone. And she's quite a story, too. I don't know, Jeremy could probably tell you more about that. But on one of the pictures of Hopemont, I was able to bring the restoration back, and there's a picture of her in there. Mm. And that could be the only picture that's ever been shot of her. And she was so well respected that when she died, she was kept in state in the house, which was never done for an enslaved person. And she's actually buried in the Morgan's plot, although at askew, so you can tell she's not really a Morgan, but they wanted her with them. So that's where the restoration comes in. Same thing on Dr. Peter. That was a really hard one to do. And on these, like I said, the resolution is so high on these photos and the printing process. You can use a magnifying glass and even see more here. You can see that 1876 date on there. This was done in another book earlier, but you couldn't really tell what was going on. It was
Yeah, this particular, for people listening, this particular image is a very well known. I've seen this quite a few times.
Yeah, it's been done a lot of times, but not that clarity.
Yeah. It's like a view through the park looking at, is that First Presbyterian?
Yeah, I think that's First Presbyterian.
And I think it's reversed or something, but I did what UK said it was looking. It says looking north, but it's actually looking south.
Oh, no, we'll have to reprint the whole book.
No, but that's what they said. That's what.
You also have an extended section on some of the iron works.
Yes.
And that's really interesting. I mean, I myself, I've kind of just walking around before noticed things and snap pictures with my phone when I'm on lunch or something. Mm-hmm. And I mean, could you talk a little bit about that? And you also have something in there about the eagle.
Right.
On top of the carriage house. Yeah.
Well, on the fences, it was like walking by and then find that they did have the emblems on there so I could trace down the company that made them. And I could find the catalogs, which are online, luckily, from those companies. And you could see the parts that they ordered to make the fences, which is interesting. The eagle, the head, the one that faces the park on top of the carriage house, there's two eagles on top of that house, but the one that faces the park, the head is gone. There's a picture of that in here. You have to look closely because they ran out of space and they didn't make the picture real big, but it's in there if you look with the magnifying glass. And I figured the only way the head could come off is probably somebody shot it off as a dare.
Possibly.
Well, those rowdy Transylvania University students, capable of anything.
Yeah.
Would those have been local factories that made the...
There was a story in there that she did that later. They're not original to the house. It was somebody put them up. It's actually in the book here somewhere. In 1948, Andrew Johnson and his wife Lucretia Adams purchased a house, and they put in the small pane windows, European-looking windows, and the ornamental eagles were added. So after the war.
That's the famous headless eagle.
Yeah. A lot of these images are things that you notice, and then you see the picture in the book, and you're like, oh, I've noticed that house 100 times. Yeah.
Well, that's what I try to do is capture things that people would just walk on by and not notice.
And since our radio listeners
Yeah.
can't see this,
Yeah.
they can't see how beautifully these pictures are reproduced in the book. Bob is obviously very experienced at making these kinds of projects really stand out.
The shadows, the light, it's all very beautiful in a lot of the photographs. So it's a great inspiration for people to go out and find the book.
Yes.
and read it. And there's also, you mentioned the skylight at the Carnegie Center, but I learned recently that at the Central Library, the new library on Main Street, that is inspired by the skylight at the Carnegie Center as well. And if you once you see the picture in the book, it really makes sense. If you've been to the 1989 building, it becomes very obvious. Bob, how can people acquire your book?
Okay, this is a limited run of 500 copies, which for a history book is very limited. They are available on Amazon, at Willcutt Guitars, Joseph Beth, Mulberry and Lime.
Okay, great. Are you working on future projects? Do you have more books in the works?
Well, we haven't agreed on a collaborative project yet. But
Germany.
I am working on a book about Benjamin Gratz and what his life tells us about 19th century Lexington, which hopefully will be published toward the end of 2026 or maybe 2027, depending on how things go with the University Press of Kentucky. But early next year, I'll be publishing a book on a totally different subject, the French Revolution's debates about slavery with Princeton University Press, and that is due out in the spring of 2026.
Wow.
So even though I'm retired, I'm trying to keep busy.
That sounds wonderful.
I'm working on one right now with the Bell Court Neighborhood Association. Of course, there's an 1840s mansion right in the middle that burned and was rebuilt in the later 1800s. And the houses surrounding there are mostly in the 1919, 1920-ish range when the land was sold off to make subdivisions. So there's interesting early 19th century architecture in there. 20th century.
You can hit all of the neighborhoods. You could do a book on every neighborhood in Lexington.
There are a lot, yeah.
Well, Lexington is very rich in history.
Oh, yes.
And there are many different angles from which you could approach it. So I think Bob will be busy.
I've got a lot of ideas I want to do.
And I think we're lucky that a lot of the neighborhoods are still around. There's probably a lot that aren't, but
there are a lot that aren't.
But there are lots to explore.
Oh, yeah. It gets deep.
Those are the questions I had planned to ask. Are there other things you'd like to cover?
Well, let me say a few things about the sources I used to do the historical essay in the book, because to me that was as interesting as walking around the park with the camera was for Bob. It took me into archival institutions here in Lexington, to the county record office, where Shea Brown helped me find property records related to the park, to the special collections room at Transylvania University, where I did some of my research with their giant bust of Jefferson Davis looking over my shoulder. They've now put him in a closet, but he used to be towering over the reader's table there. The University of Kentucky, the archives of the Bluegrass Trust have some fascinating documents about the struggle to save the park in the 1950s. I interviewed Jim Gray, who told me wonderful stories about a woman named Lucy Crump, the so-called mayor of Gratz Park, who had a lot to do with turning it into a historic site between the 1950s and her death in the 1990s. So it was great fun reading the old Lexington newspapers, stories like the story of the crime of passion in 1897, when a jealous husband shot his wife's lover in the middle of the park, the only murder we know of that took place in Gratz Park. So for a historian, it was great fun chasing all this down and then trying to put it into a story that would be interesting to readers.
Some of the photos I took, especially of the spiral staircases, which are really interesting to me because they're Fibonacci spirals. And I reproduced the angles that Clay Lancaster did and Rexford Newcomb did in their older books, but with modern cameras and being more careful, like Clay Lancaster did wonderful things for Kentucky history and other histories. But to him, it was not important to get everything straight and all that. Like he was just documenting things. So I use those as a personal thing to see, like, if I could improve on his original vision.
Yeah, and I think you can say you definitely did that. I found the book really a joy to read, and I learned a lot as well. I'd also encourage people, if they want to learn more, to visit us at the Kentucky Room at Lexington Public Library. We have many other sources like this one, and if you're wanting to learn local history, we're happy to assist people with that as well.
Yes, I should have mentioned the Gratz Park hanging file in the Kentucky Room is full of old newspaper clippings and documents that I would never have found otherwise.
Yeah, those are things that librarians cut out over many, many years, and they were significant stories, and they still really useful to people today. So, Dr. Popkin, Bob, thank you so much for speaking today. It was a pleasure.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yes.
Thanks for listening to Tales from the Kentucky Room, a podcast brought to you by the Central Library's Kentucky Room staff at the Lexington Public Library. If you enjoyed listening, please take a minute to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever else you get your podcast. And please remember to recommend the podcast to friends. If you have any questions about local history or genealogy research, you can visit us in the Kentucky Room to use our collection and newspaper microfilm. Or you can email us at elibrarian@lexpublib.org. That's elibrarian@lexpublib.org. I'm David Bryant, and we'll be back with another episode next month.